Awakened Artist Podcast with John White.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Awakened Artist Podcast. I am your host, John White, the Awakened Artist. I am excited to come to you from my all-new studio. I have created a studio in my basement as opposed to doing the podcast in my living room. I now have a cool background that I created over the past couple months throughout the holidays. I took a little time away, obviously, from the podcast. The last episode I had was with my son Jackson, and I want to do a little bit of an update / outline episode here as to what's going on and how the podcast is changing yet again, and the intentions of that going forward. Like I said, I made this the studio I have now here, and I'm pretty excited about it because I have a way to now, the background I have behind me here, I have another one on the other side of the room. So when I have a guest, it's all set up. I basically just have to kind of adjust the camera angles and the mics. And I'll probably have to work on the sound as time goes on. I don't know. It seems like there's a little bit of sound bouncing around in this room, but I'll adjust to that as time goes on and see how that works out. But I was having a little bit of a problem with doing it in the living room because every time I had to set up the entire podcast, it was difficult it just took too much time. And also, I didn't have the motivation. And a lot of times when I had the ideas to record a podcast, I didn't have the freedom to be able to just sit down and go. And now I do have that. And I'm pretty excited because it's a nice little space I've got that it's the podcast vibe. It's me, and I put a bunch of art down here. I'll put up pictures on my Instagram. And speaking of the Instagram, I'm also going to start a new Instagram page that's just for the podcast, and then have my Instagram page that I have now just for me. And people are, you're open to follow that, either one of them. But as far as the podcast goes, it's now the middle of January. It's cold as fuck here. It's been like below zero for this past week. And with the seasons, I look at it cyclical. It's like, it's a new perspective. You know how people have it's the beginning of the year, the New Year's resolutions people have. For myself, I'm always looking to change throughout the year and trying to find ways to do that. And so the winter months for me in January, it's really going inward and figuring out exactly what that new thing is. And over the holidays, I really got a good perspective on that while I was creating the room. It took me some time here, so I had a lot of time for reflection and got caught up in the busyness of the holidays. But here I am, and I realized in all of this introspection that I've done that the podcast it's had a theme that I didn't really realize that it had. I've done a series on grief. I've done a series on spirituality. I've talked about my therapy, the passing of my mother, and other people that I've lost, and some other sporadic episodes here and there. But I realized that the overall theme was mental health, my mental health. And with that, I want to try to focus on that going forward. Now that I can see in a bigger picture here what the podcast has been and how it's changed. And honestly, if you look at it from the beginning to where it is now, it has been a bit all over the place, and maybe hard for some people to follow if you're looking for something consistent to stay the same. But I haven't been consistent. This has been a bit of an experiment from the beginning, an experiment of vulnerability for me, and really putting myself out there to, I don't know, change and give myself confidence and not being so afraid of being vulnerable. And I personally like to stay home. I'm not a social person, but someone who needs social interaction very much. But that's all been because I haven't been comfortable with myself in the past. And I have become extremely comfortable with myself over this time period. And to be able to sit here and record in front of this, and doing it in video form. And at first it was even difficult just to hear myself, but now I'm extremely comfortable and confident in that. And as time goes on, I'll become even more confident. But I'm doing this for myself, and in hopes primarily it would be awesome to turn it into a career and do something that I love to do, but to be able to help people, maybe for me, I've always looked at other people and their situations. I love watching documentaries and learning about all from serial killers to athletes to anybody that's been successful or had a extreme downfall, what happened and what went wrong or what went right. And for me, that has been, I've learned a lot. And so what I want to do with this podcast is I want to be able to, seeing as I've had so many experiences in my life, like very unique experiences that I've learned through talking with others and listening to others, that I have a lot of things in common with people that have had some pretty tough lives. And I'm not, this isn't a pity me type of situation or anything like that. It's legitimately me just getting some stuff out here, but primarily trying to give people, young people and people my age and older people, anybody, whatever age, a perspective of someone who's been through a lot of ups and downs and is in a very good health, very good place mentally. And from that, I don't know if you can hear I got animals all over the place. I also have acquired my son bought a snake. So now we have a snake in the house, along with a dog, a cat, fish, plants everywhere. I swear, I sit in my living room, it's like sitting in a small zoo. But yeah, if you hear any animals in the background, like always, it's my dog probably wanting to go outside, or she's bored as hell during the daytime. And yeah, but back to the episodes going forward here. I'm very excited about being able to do this with more of a set plan. And I have it planned out on how I want to do it. I'm also going to continue to do the conversations. That was extremely fun. It's just a matter of trying to get people to sit down and schedule them to do the podcast. And I'm not wanting to do the Zoom just yet, like long distance interviews. I want to be able to sit down with people face to face. And I have quite a few people that I'm trying to do that with. So I'm going to just pop those conversations in between these episodes. And yeah, those will at the same time, they'll be focused on mental health without making it a big point of saying, hey, specifically, what are you doing for your mental health? Things like that. It's really just going to be brought up. And my mental health revolves around 3 pillars. That is my diet, movement, and community. Those 3 things, through doing a bunch of research, it seems like in communities, well, it's proven, in some communities where people live the longest and are the happiest, it's because of those 3 things they have in common. And I'm talking about communities throughout the entire world. They have that in common, those 3 things. And I 100% notice with those 3 things, when my diet is out of whack, I don't feel good, therefore my mental health suffers in that situation. If I am stagnant in the winter months and not moving around, I'm at my happiest when I'm outside gardening and doing a lot. So when I say movement, that can mean exercise. It can just be getting up and not being stagnant. And then community, being around your people, having people to share life with. I myself, I don't have a partner, and I haven't for 2.5 years now. That in itself is a podcast, probably. The struggle of that. There's a lot of benefits to being by yourself, but at some point in time, if you don't have a partner, well, at least for me, it's a big deal. But family and friends in that time period have been equally important. And even if I were to have a partner, it would be equally important to be around my people, my family, and friends that I have things in common with, and just different outlets for different parts of myself. And the other thing I want to say primarily here going forward is that I am definitely, this is kind of a little bit of disclaimer, and I don't want to do this every episode, but I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, I'm none of those things. I'm really just doing this to give you examples of where I fucked up, where I was at my bottom, and it's been a roller coaster to say the least in my life, where I've been the very high and then very low, and then in trying to find that balance of being able to just stay. I'm not bipolar or anything, and it's really just extremes. Being extremely low and being depressed has been something I've suffered or struggled with in my life quite a few times, and I've learned a lot about myself in order to balance that out and not have to have those lows. And if I start to have those lows, I know how to climb out of them, and I have tools that I use to make myself better, or back into my happy place, I guess, whatever the fuck that means. I also don't want to act like during these episodes, or at all, period, in life, that I've ever had it harder than anybody. Again, I've just had experiences, and a lot of them, and I think that being able to use or speak on them, it will be able to help other people find their own way. So I'm a big believer in the worst things that have ever happened to you. They're the worst things that ever happened to you. The same goes for me. I have one of the worst things that's ever happened to me is the death of my mom. Somebody else may be the worst thing that's ever happened to them is something is, let's just say they got into a car accident, and that in itself, I don't know what the comparison lies between the two situations. I just know that to me, in my mind, losing my mom was extremely traumatic and very, very difficult for me in comparison to being in a car accident, which I've been in before too. So it's just, I'm not trying to, there's no comparisons here. I don't want you to compare your situation to mine and say, oh, I don't have it as bad as him, so therefore I can't, or I have it worse than him. He doesn't understand. It's not about that. It's about just listening, because again, this is where I've learned the most. I've learned a lot through my therapy. I've learned a lot through my own research, but primarily through listening to other people and what they've gone through to be in their way of being healthy and happy. So I'm really going to do everything I can to not use buzzwords and, get too much. I'm a spiritual person, and I've had spiritual podcasts to talk a little bit about that, but I'm not going to shove either one of those, like the whole buzzword thing of saying certain things. This is more about just talking and getting out. How do I say it? Getting out my thoughts and experiences, and the words that come through during that. Sure, there's probably going to be a bunch of buzzwords in that, but my intentions are not to try to trigger anybody or say things to get people riled up. Or have some kind of debate. Also, I don't want to fall in the category of I think the podcast is spiritual because it's about my spiritual journey. It's about and again, there's a little buzz phrase there for you, that that my spiritual journey, meaning discovering myself and doing the healing and doing all of those things and doing all of the work to make myself in a better place, to not where I was at. And that in itself is my spiritual journey. So it is spiritual, and I do talk about spiritual things. So there's an element of that to the podcast for sure going forward, but I'm not going to get head in the clouds weird shit and do any of that. This is going to be very grounded all the way through, and I think it has been up to this point. It's just a reflection of me, and I think that we all have things, if we sit and listen to each other, we all have things in common, and that's the purpose of doing the conversations, is normal people that have unique stories. I think we all do. No matter who you are, we're all unique in ourselves, and that each one of us has a unique perspective on life. And I find that very interesting. And it's also helped me live a happier life myself, finding where I fit into everything. I hope you enjoyed this. I don't really know that there was much of anything significant in there for you to take for yourself, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of excitement going forward as to, or just a little bit of a resource as to what the hell the podcast is now. And I've had this is my third episode. I think I just did 3 episodes ago, one where it's like, hey, welcome to the new format. I did one that was a re-examination podcast, and this is another one of those, but it's really about the bigger picture of the entire podcast. And I want people to be able to see me at my most vulnerable when I wasn't very confident at the beginning, and then see how it's progressed over. It's going on, it'll be, I started doing the podcast in July of 2022, and I'm a year and a half into doing the podcast, and it hasn't been very consistent, but it's a good outline. So I hope to this year for sure be more consistent. Now that I have a space for it, I'm much more comfortable with what I'm doing. I know how to do the editing, and I've learned the video editing, all of those things to make it more visually appealing, and also the audio. All of these things I finally feel pretty confident and comfortable in what I'm presenting going forward. And more importantly, I'm really excited about the conversations aspect. I think a lot of other people are pretty excited about that too, and bringing in different people with different perspectives and seeing where that goes. So I appreciate you again. Be sure to check out my new Instagram page, which is going to be the Awakened Artist Podcast. And then I have my actual Instagram pages, my personal Instagram pages, the Awakened Artist. So check that out. Check those out. Follow them, please. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and just give me some ratings, please, on the Spotify's and Apple iTunes, or Apple Music now, and Google Music, all of those things. Yeah, appreciate you listening and taking the time to check out another episode, and I'll see you in the next one. If you'd like to learn more about me and my experiences, follow @AwakenedArtist on Instagram, or visit the website awakenedartist.com.